All right, everybody, I'm visiting with Steve Hill for lunch. We actually set this up yesterday before I decided I'd binge out on do-gooder and soft fluff stuff today. My own mental health escape here. Anyway, Steve, you've been around this town for a long time. You left for Texas for a little bit, but we've all forgiven you for that.
Thank you.
And his day job is pretty boring. You know the mayor, right?
Yeah, I do know the mayor. Yes,
but his real money-making sideline gig is doing cartoons.
Yeah, he's got a lot of money in that.
So if you're not familiar with Steve's work, I'll kind of give you a glimpse of his latest one. You're showing off the fact that you got to visit with the turkey guy.
With Dennis Cantor?
Yeah. So talk about your experience in doing art. At what age did you start this?
Okay, well let me address that cartoon.
Okay.
It was kind of funny. There was a reception for Ennis that I got to go to, and he couldn't have been a nicer guy. He was taking pictures with everyone, and it just turned out that I didn't have my camera with me, so I didn't actually get a photo of me and Ennis, and I thought, well, when I go home I'll just draw one. So I drew that and I threw it out on Twitter, and about an hour later probably Ennis retweeted it, which resulted in me picking up about 50 to 75 Turkish followers. so I'm excited to have them on board, and I'll be doing Thunder-related cartoons throughout the season. I'll put them on Twitter for people to enjoy.
So Ennis backed you up on this to make sure people didn't think you were making it up.
He did. He supported my contention that I actually did meet him.
Pretty cool getting to meet someone like him.
That's probably my first big NBA meet, and well, that's not true. I've met Dr. J before, which personally.
Oh, just Dr. J.
Yeah, I met Dr. J.
Wow.
And even spent quality time with Dr. J. So that
did you do a cartoon of that as well?
I did not.
So talk about your early days with the crayons.
Okay, well, I was kind of came right out of the womb with a pen and pencil in my hand, and I've been drawing since I was a little kid. You know, first you draw for the amusement of your classmates, which can irritate teachers at times. The other thing that happened to me as a kid, it was not uncommon for school children to doodle pictures of their teachers, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, mine looked exactly like the teacher, so when they came by, I couldn't say, "Oh no, that's not you."
And was it a respectful depiction?
I like to find the funny things about people, so it depends on your sense of humor whether or not it was respectful. But then about age 14, I started doing actual editorial cartoons for the Yukon Review.
Wow. How did that happen?
Well, it's a funny story. The way it happened was the press secretary for David Hall at the time was a gentleman named Ed Hardy. And Ed was a longtime family friend. He and my mom were basically raised together. And so Ed saw my drawings and he said, you know, you should be an editorial cartoonist. And so one thing led to another, and I wound up in the Yukon Review.
And then later on, your cartoons were featured prominently in the Gazette.
Right. After college, I picked up a freelance job at the Gazette and did cartoons for them for about 10 years.
We have one of the folks that are following us here.
Yeah.
I just want to compliment you and your clothing line. Or I guess maybe Ed Hardy. I guess, oh, that's right. There's another Ed Hardy.
Clothing,
okay.
Yeah. It's certainly not my fashion sense.
So yeah, I don't think this is the same Ed Hardy that we're talking about here.
No, this is a different Ed Hardy.
So you had kind of a fun run there with the Gazette. What time period was that? Not to age you too much.
It was mid 80s to right into the 90s. I stopped because I had taken a job with Governor David Walters. I was his press secretary, and when you have political jobs, political cartoons aren't your best step forward.
So you weren't allowed to do cartoons of Gene Stipe?
Yeah, it just didn't make political sense.
So Governor Walters frowned on that.
He might have, yeah.
And then later on, you left the state.
I did. I moved to Dallas in '95.
Why in the world did you do that?
To be honest, it was an employment opportunity. So, well, you know, we lived down there for 15 years, and I enjoyed living in the greater Dallas area. We lived up in the suburbs in Allen, Texas. And
did you ever aspire to join some of the greats in the country at that time, or did you just know you weren't going to be the next Berkey brother?
Well, the cartooning industry actually changed a lot from when I graduated from college. When I graduated from college, there was being an editorial cartoonist at a newspaper was a pretty hot profession, and they were paid pretty well. And then you're very familiar with the arc of the newspaper industry, and bit by bit they started getting rid of their cartoonists. They were among the first to go, and actually among the first to go were the freelance cartoonists, and then the paid cartoonists.
So you were hit early on.
Yeah. So at this point, you know, there's probably a fraction of the cartoonists employed by daily newspapers that there were in the mid '80s.
Which is sad. I mean, you think about the glory days, like 30s through 60s, where you had sports cartoonists, and you do some of that too, obviously.
I did. I had an opportunity. A friend of mine is the editorial cartoonist at Omaha, Nebraska, and he was originally the sports cartoonist at the Kansas City Star. And when he got the job in Omaha, he had to quit the Star job, and so he recommended me for that position, and they hired me. And so for about 5 years, I did a weekly sports cartoon for the Kansas City Star. And then a friend of mine, Brett McMurphy, I'll plug in, Brett McMurphy with ESPN, he's a college football writer and was a high school classmate of mine. He was working at the Tampa Tribune, and when he heard I was available, you know, for hire, they went ahead and hired me. So I did that for about 7 years. I did two sports cartoons a week for the Tribune.
And now you're just doing it kind of for fun, aren't you?
I just do it for, yeah, it's for my own enjoyment. And I've found a little bit of an audience on Twitter. It's at Sports Tunes if you want to join the band. And I try to, each Thunder game, I have a personal mission that about halftime I try to figure out what's happening in the game. And then by the end of the game, I try to post a cartoon about that particular game. So
one of my favorites involved a Calvin and Hobbes tribute. It was Russell Westbrook, and who was the other one on the wagon?
And KD. It struck me that the two of them, their personalities were very similar to Calvin and Hobbes. You had Russell, who was kind of the impetuous Calvin character, and then, you know, the more sage like KD as Hobbes. And so there's a famous picture of them. Yes, excellent foods here. So there's an excellent picture of them in a wagon, kind of a famous picture where they're flying through the air in a wagon. And I just replaced Calvin and Hobbes with Russ and KD, and that's been my most popular.
I love
Twitter.
that one.
Yeah.
I love that one. And by the way, Dom McCoy, I'm not sure if you know him, but he just commented that it sounds like you have trouble holding down a job.
Don knows that one. Don is a good friend of mine, and he knows better than anyone my inability to stay in one place for very long.
So, but Mick's got you for a couple more years?
As long as I'm welcome at the mayor's office, I'm happy to be there.
You've got a pretty unique position there at the mayor's office in terms of you get to see a lot of what's going on.
Yeah, I do. I have a front row seat to what's going on. I serve as Mick's chief of staff, and it's a job that I love. I tell people all the time it's the best job I've ever had. Mick's a great, he's a longtime friend of mine, and it's a thrill working with him each and every day.
And there's just so much going on in this town. What is there one thing going on in the city that you're most excited about right now?
Well, yeah, one thing. That's a tough question.
I know. I just hit you up with one hard ball, and we're supposed to be doing fluff all day.
I mean, everything's going on is pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to the streetcar. I'm looking forward to the big park. I think both of those are going to be game changers, and maybe not immediately, but I think 10 years down the road, people are going to look back at those two items and think, "Wow, that was some forward thinking," and it really changed, the city.
All right. Well, Steve, thank you very much. I'm about to eat my healthy lime chicken salad here at Yucatan Taco. Folks, I'm going to take a lunch break now, but I'll be having more Periscope videos throughout the afternoon.